Let us continue the analysis of Thomas Gray's Elegy written in a country churchyard. We will be reading stanzas 12 to 19, and the poet here talks about the poor people and how their humble lot prevented the development of their talents and also crimes. The poet says, "Perhaps in this neglected spot is laid some heart once pregnant with celestial fire, hands that the rod of empire might have swayed or waked to ecstasy the living lyre." Let us look at the words used in this stanza. This neglected spot refers to the country churchyard, which nobody cares to visit because it contains only the graves of the poor. Then you have the word heart, which stands for man, some heart, any man, pregnant with celestial fire, divinely inspired, and a rod of empire stands for the emblem of sovereignty. Look at the word perhaps with which the stanza begins, and then you have might have, you know. So what the writer is implying is that these poor people could have been all these things. That is, they could have been, creative, they could have been rulers, they could have been writers and musicians if they had the opportunity, or swayed to ecstasy the living lyre. Swayed again is wielded. Waked means played upon. Played, it is a short form of wakened, the living lyre. The lyre is capable of producing music like that of a living person. The lyre is a kind of a musical instrument, like the harp, anciently used as an accompaniment to poetry. Hence, waking the lyre here represents writing of poetry. It can even mean natural musical talent. So what the poet is saying is that perhaps that it is quite possible that this country churchyard, which nobody cares to visit, contains the graves of men who, when they lived, were divinely inspired by lofty thoughts and feelings, or of men who could have reigned as kings or distinguished themselves as great poets or musicians if they had the opportunity. There's a condition involved. If they had the opportunity, they could have been anybody. In the next stanza, he says, "But knowledge to their eyes, for her ample page, rich with the spoils of time, did never unroll. Chill penury repressed their noble rage and froze the genial current of the soul." The earlier stanza began with a perhaps, you know, it's quite possible, and this begins with a but, giving you a reason that why they could not become great, why, but they could not do so because they didn't have knowledge, and they were poor. He says, again, look at the words knowledge and penury. Both are personified. Knowledge to their eyes, her ample page, rich with the spoils of time, did never unroll. So, knowledge is personified and spoken of as possessing a bulky volume in which are recorded the thoughts and deeds of all ages. This is because the chief source of knowledge is books. To their eyes, that is, again refers to the poor people, the peasants, to their eyes, before them, so that they could read it. Ample page is the large book of knowledge, rich with the spoils of time, containing all the valuable records of past ages. Unroll, open, uh, and penury is called chill penury, cold poverty, destitution, that repressed, put down their noble rage, noble of a high order. And rage is not used in the sense of anger, but it is used here in a double sense: ambition and ardent desire, generous feelings, noble rage, in a way referring to their uh, creativity, froze the genial current of the soul. The soul is here spoken of as a stream, which is at once cheering and fertilizing. The comparison suggests the fervor and creative power of genius. The effect of the freezing of a river is that it does not flow. The effect of poverty on the peasants was that their genius remained undeveloped and inactive. So in stanza 12, he talks about uh, that those poor people could have been great, rulers or writers or musicians, but they uh, could not do so because uh, because of knowledge and because of poverty. So the reason why these poor peasants could never achieve fame as rulers or as poets or musicians was that they never had the opportunity of exercising their talents. They were ignorant and poor, and hence their genius remained undeveloped and inactive forever. And so they could not distinguish themselves as statesmen or as warriors or as poets. Full many a gem of purest ray serene, the dark, unfathomed caves of ocean bare, full many a flower is born to blush unseen, and waste its sweetness on the desert air. Full many, that is, a great many, gem, pearls, jewels, of purest ray serene, of the of the most uh, unspotted luster, of flawless beauty, uh, dark, the dark caves that lie at the bottom of the of the sea, unfathomed, that is something that has not been measured. Caves of ocean refers to the hollows in the bed of the sea. Bear, have, contain, is born, comes into being. Blush refers to the glowing color of the flowers, unseen, unobserved. Waste its sweetness, throw away its perfume in an unfrequented place where there is no one to enjoy its fragrance. So what the poet here is saying is that there are many pearls of perfect beauty and luster lying in the hollows in the bed of the sea where nobody can reach them. There are also many flowers that blossom in lonely forests where no one can see them and admire their beauty or enjoy their fragrance. These are beautiful lines. See the kind of comparison Gray is making, you know, uh, and he's comparing these unknown people, these ordinary people, to to gems and jewels, and in the next stanza he says, "Some village Hampton that with dauntless breast the little tyrant of his fields withstood, some mute inglorious Milton here may rest, some Cromwell guiltless of his country's blood." Uh, so, some village Hampton, the reference here is to John Hampden, born in London in 1594, who was a celebrated patriot. In 1636, he distinguished himself by his resistance to the illegal authority of King Charles I. and in the Civil War he took up arms against the king. Hampton, though a proper noun, has been used here as a common noun, and this phrase means some villager who had the spirit to resist tyranny as boldly as Hampton. With dauntless breast means boldly, fearlessly. The little tyrant of his fields, that is, a petty village landlord, is surely little when compared with the mighty tyrant Charles I, whom Hampton opposed, withstood, fought against. Some mute, inglorious Milton. The reference here is to John Milton, who is the greatest epic poet of England. But this proper noun has been again used as a common noun, meaning that many Miltons may be there who were silent and who never achieved fame as a poet as Milton did. Inglorious. Inglorious means not renowned. Here refers to in this country. May rest is probably buried. Some Cromwell, again a reference to Oliver Cromwell, the parliamentary leader of England during the Great Civil War, espoused the Puritan cause. He was appointed as the commander of the parliamentary army, which defeated King Charles I, took him prisoner, had him executed, and set up a republican form of government. This proper noun is again used as a common noun, meaning some villager who had the military genius of Cromwell. Guiltless of his country's blood, someone who, unlike Cromwell, was free from the sin of having caused the death of large numbers of his countrymen. Suggesting against Cromwell here alludes to the slaughter of the Civil War. The prejudice against Cromwell was extremely strong throughout the 18th century, even amongst the most liberal-minded. His wise statesmanship, his unceasing earnestness, his high-minded purpose were not yet seen. Gray, therefore, praises Hampton more than Cromwell. So what the poet is saying is that just as there are gems and flowers unseen and unheard of, so it is probable that in this churchyard is buried some village farmer who had the spirit to resist the tyranny of some petty landlord as boldly as Hampton opposed King Charles I by refusing to pay ship money. Or perhaps here lies buried some villager who had the genius of a great poet like Milton, but who, from want of opportunity, wrote no poems, and so remained obscure. Or again, some villager who had great military genius like Cromwell, but who, unlike Cromwell, was free from the sin of having caused the death of large numbers of his countrymen in a civil war. Let us move to the next stanza, and the poet writes, "The applause of listening senates to command, the threats of pain and ruin to despise, to scatter plenty over a smiling land, and read their history in a nation's eyes. Their lot forbade, nor circumscribed alone, their growing virtues, but their crimes confined, forbade to wade through slaughter to a throne, and shut the gates of mercy on mankind." The applause of listening senates, applause is praise, and senate is a proper noun used as a common noun, meaning political assemblies or parliaments. The Senate was the greatest political assembly of Rome. Command is win, gain. This line from applause to command is connected with the next stanza. The prose order, and therefore I read both together. The prose order will be their lot forbade. them to command the applause of listening to senates, to despise the threats of pain and ruin, to uh, to scatter, etc. The meaning of the line is they never became famous political orators. Threats of pain and ruin, the fears of torture, death, confiscation, or banishment. To despise, to scorn, to give instances of men who were uninfluenced by the fear of pain or ruin. Uh, the meaning of the line is that they never became heroes or martyrs. Scatter is spread, and plenty, abundance, smiling is happy. Again, the meaning of the line is that their obscure lot prevented them from spreading a prosperity and happiness through their country. Uh, Read their history in a nation's eyes. Conclude from the happy looks of a people that their history has been a happy one and their services have been appreciated. Gray was possibly thinking of Walpole's long and peaceful administration, which ended in 1742, the very year when the elegy was begun. So the poet says in these lines that their obscure position in life prevented them from becoming great political orators whose speeches the national assemblies of their country listened to with admiration. Likewise, they never became heroes or martyrs who, in their devotion to duty or to truth, were uninfluenced by fear of death or torture, confiscation or banishment. For the same reason, they never became great administrators who, by their benevolent measures, conferred peace and prosperity on their country and made their countrymen look happy and contented. The next stanza, their lot forbade. Again, it is connected to the earlier one, and it means their fortune denied, circumscribed, limited, their growing virtues, the growth of their virtues, their talents, their qualities. Crimes refers to vices, confined refers to limited, narrowed, forbade to wade means prevented them from wading. Wade through slaughter to a throne? Walk across pools of human bloodshed by themselves in their attempt to seize the crown. Uh, this is an exaggerated metaphor to denote the seizure of power by a tyrant by causing a terrible massacre. Shut the gates of mercy on mankind, not allowing anyone to receive mercy. The meaning is that their obscure lot saved them from becoming merciless tyrants. So, the writer says in these lines that their humble life, though it allowed no opportunity for the development of their noble qualities, did nevertheless save them from many a wicked deed of which they would otherwise have been guilty. It likewise saved them from committing bloodshed such as is sometimes resorted to by an ambitious man to usurp a kingdom. It saved them also from becoming merciless tyrants. The struggling pangs of conscious truth to hide, to quench the blushes of ingenuous shame, or heap the shrine of luxury and pride with incense kindled at the muse's flame. Struggling pangs? Struggling pangs means the painful efforts to escape. The conscious truth to hide. Conscious truth, the truth which they know and feel to be true. And hide means suppress. To quench. Quench means to put out, prevent from appearing. The blushes of ingenuous shame, the reddening of the face, uh, which the natural feeling of shame causes. To quench the blushes of ingenuous shame. This line by Gray may be a borrowing from Shakespeare's line in Winter's Tale. Come quench your blushes and present yourself. Heap means heap the shrine of luxury. Heap means pile up. Shrine of luxury and pride. Again, luxury and pride begin with a capital letter and are personified. The temple where luxury and pride are worshipped, that is the houses of the rich and the great. With incense kindled at the muse's flame. Incense, literally it means fragrant spices burnt in temples at the time of worship, but here it means verses composed in praise of the rich and great and offered to them ostensibly as a token of reverence, but really by way of flattery. Writing odes in honor of great men in order to win their favor or patronage was a common mode of flattery practiced by poets in Gray's time. Kindled, inspired, and muse's flame, the poetic genius which is represented as a fire. The muses were goddesses who presided over poetry and the fine arts. So, to understand the meaning of this stanza better, we should say, their lot forbade them before this stanza. Therefore, the paraphrasing will be, their lot forbade them to hide the struggling pangs of conscious truth or honesty, as also from becoming courtly and venal poets. They never tried wilfully to misrepresent truth by stifling free inquiry and the evidence of truth. They never attempted to suppress the blush that is caused by the natural feeling of shame. They never addressed flattering poems to the rich and great in the hope of being rewarded by them. Now, the next stanza begins with a very famous line, and which is often quoted: "Far from the far from the madding crowd's ignoble strife, their sober wishes never learned to stray along the cool sequestered vale of life. They kept the noiseless tenor of their ways." Uh, the prose order is that they, being far from the madding crowd's ignoble strife, their sober wishes never learned to stray. Madding crowd is people who devote themselves frantically to worldly pursuits and who are mad after wealth and position. Ignoble strife means competition, sober wishes, moderate desire. That is, they never had, the poor people, uh, the farmers, they never had, the ordinary people who lie buried in the country churchyard, they never had inordinate desires of any kind, never learned to stray, never went beyond their proper limits. To stray means to wander from the path of virtue. Cool, sequestered vale of life. Their quiet, retired life is compared to a cool, refreshing, lonely valley, because just as a valley is free from the storms that rage on the tops of mountains, so was their life free from the disturbances that surround a great man engaged in important public affairs. Sequestered, retired, vale, valley, kept the noiseless tenor of their way. This involves the metaphor of life being compared to a journey, you know, and tenor is uniform course. Their way represents their life. So, what is the poet saying here is that living as they did, aloof from the mean competition and jealousies of people who devote themselves frantically to worldly pursuits, their desires were always moderate and set within proper limits. They led a quiet, retired, humble life to the end of their days. So, uh, in these stanzas, the poet speaks of those peasants uh, and says that, and speaking about them, he says that some of these poor peasants could have been great rulers or statesmen, famous musicians or poets, if they had not been ignorant and poor. Yet, cases of potential greatness are common enough for beautiful pearls, he says, lie at the bottom unseen in the wilderness. This country churchyard may contain the grave of one who could become a popular hero like Hampden, or an immortal poet like Milton, or a military genius like Cromwell, but that their humble lot denied them a chance of becoming great orators, or great martyrs, or great benefactors of their country. But he also goes on to say that their humble lot, while it prevented the development of their virtues, limited the nature and extent of their vices as well, so that they were saved from becoming bloody usurpers or merciless tyrants. It saved them likewise from showing a callous disregard of truth and honesty, and from becoming mean flatterers of the great. Living as they did, aloof, away from the centers of busy life, they were people whose wishes were virtuous and whose lives were retired and peaceful.